Hello. Welcome to my 31st October. I'm Lucky27, and this is a series of stories I have often told about my life. Welcome to part 2 of the story entitled The Winchester Mystery House. So, as I've stated before, nothing spooky had happened to me in or around the house for the first 2 decades of my visits. I had done all I could not to see or sense things and had managed. Mostly. That all changed after I got with my husband. I could no longer turn off things or ignore them, and I had to learn how to manage it. By the time I returned to Winchester, I had been with my husband for half a decade and had started my career in a field that promotes sensitivity. Needless to say, I was much more open than I had been in the house before. I wasn't at the level I am now, but it was different for me. We had gone back for their man-made haunted house near Halloween that year. It was myself, my sister, my mother, my stepfather, and a close friend of mine that I had met while in school for my profession. She was terrified of haunted houses, so it was fun to, 1, introduce her to the house, and 2, scare the daylights out of her. We did the haunted house on the grounds first. It was great. One of the best haunted houses I've ever been to, and I even worked at one. Then we went to the house itself. What they had done was give you a flashlight and a remote player with headphones. All the rooms had numbers on the wall, and you could push the number on the remote to have a tour guide talk about what was in that room. This meant that you could give yourself a guided tour at your own pace, something I hadn't done before at Winchester. I was thrilled. They also had actors dressed up all over the place to jump out of hidden passages and scare you. It was great. My friend clung to me like a snake, but it was enjoyable. We were a room or 2 behind the rest of my family as we toured the house. It was her and I alone for most of the time, and I really enjoyed it. But there were 2 things that happened that night that were a little bit spooky. One happened to my mother and my sister, and the other happened to my friend and myself. I honestly don't remember which happened first, or what rooms we were in when it happened. This was over a decade ago. So my sister and my mother were with my stepfather ahead of my friend and myself. We hadn't expected to catch up to them, but when we did, both my sister and my mother were trying to figure out what had happened in the room they were in, and wouldn't leave until they had. According to my sister, they had been looking at something when a door disguised as a cabinet, I think, opened behind them. They turned and saw a shadowy figure of a man in a top hat in the passageway that the door had opened to. Then he disappeared. When my friend and I walked into the room, both my sister and my mother were staring into the passage with their flashlights trained on it. They told me what had happened, and I asked if they thought it was an actor trying to scare them, but my mother told me that it wasn't. Then, while we were all talking about it, the door shut right next to me. My friend screamed and ushered me out of the room quickly while I was laughing. I agree that it probably wasn't a paid actor. That was what happened to them. My friend and I had a slightly less jarring situation happen to us. We were on our own, going from room to room. We entered a room, and I honestly cannot remember if the chair was in front of a window or in front of a fireplace or both. But when we entered, there was a small, veiled person in black sitting on a chair. We both thought it was an actor and turned to each other to laugh at the small fright, and we exclaimed, "Oh, you scared us!" But when we turned back to the figure, the chair was empty. There was absolutely no way they could have moved without us seeing it, and we both saw it. but the chair was empty. We just nervously giggled at each other and kept moving to the next room quietly. I think my friend was spooked because she kept looking behind us for the rest of the night, but it was interesting to say the least. But the last time I was there was when stuff kicked off. So I was moving away again. My friends, clients, and family all had plenty of notice that I was leaving. The last December I was in the same state with my family, my mom asked me to go to an Il Divo concert with her in San Jose. My sister was her usual companion, but my sister couldn't make it for some reason or another. So we planned to go. My mom knew that I wanted to see Winchester one last time, so we made plans to see the house and the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum, as well as the concert. At the time, I was also living with a roommate because my husband had already moved to a different state to start a new job, but I had stayed to finish out our apartment lease. So I had a fellow colleague of mine who needed a place to stay come live with me. He is sensitive as well, but was just starting to really learn about himself and his gifts. When he found out that we were going to Winchester, he asked me to take pictures every time I saw or felt something, then tell him about it when I got home, which I did. It was a blast of a trip, and I have stories, so here we go. First, I'd like to start with the quick fun we had at the museum. I only tell this with the Winchester stories because it was weird and funny. Now, I told my mother before we left to go to San Jose that I was in pain because my period was going to start. Deal with it. It's something we women deal with for a huge amount of our lives and should be talked about. Anyways, we get there, and as soon as we get out of the car and start walking towards the doors to the museum, the dam breaks. I mean, I wasn't going to make it to the bathroom. So as my mother watched guard, I dove into her trunk space and handled it. Once everything was taken care of, I crawled back out to find my mom laughing to herself. I asked what was so funny, and she says, "It's funny. I think this place is out for our blood." I asked her what she meant by that, and she told me about how the last time she had come to that museum with my grandfather and my sister and myself, the same thing happened to her in almost the exact same spot. She had managed to rush to the bathroom while my grandfather watched over my sister and I. And then, 33 years later, the same thing happened to me. Only I have no children. We had a good time, besides my cramps and her hip pain. Then we went to the concert, which was great. We had spent the extra to actually meet the guys and have pictures taken with them, which I still have never seen. Then the next morning we went to Winchester. We were extra excited because there was a new tour we had not been on. They had just opened up the attic areas that had been boarded up since Sarah's death in 1922, and we were hyped to see them. We did the regular tour first, which was wonderful. It was Christmas time, so there were Christmas trees all over the house and decorations all over the grounds, and it was so beautiful. One tour that I have never been on that I always wanted to go on was their candlelight Christmas tours. But I've never had the chance. Anyways, we had a few encounters on the regular tour. The first was just before entering Sarah's room. Both my mother and I decided to stay near the back of the tour this time so we could take our time and really let me say goodbye to the place. So, to the left, just before you enter the room, there is a roped-off staircase that goes down. While the rest of the tour was inside Sarah's room, I was drawn to this staircase. I felt that there was a man down there, just out of sight. I felt he was minding his own business and didn't want to interact with anyone. So I took a picture and turned back to the tour. My mother, who I didn't realize had noticed him too, asked, "Did you see him?" I said that I hadn't seen him, but I knew he was there, just out of sight. To which she said, "Yeah, I don't think he wants to bother anyone. He wasn't expecting us to notice." I agreed and said we should just let him be. But I did address him to let him know that he was welcome to follow us around and make sure we didn't mess up anything, which is what I felt he was doing. Then we rejoined the group. I told my mom that I thought his name was something old, like Gary or Greg, but I felt it started with a C or a K. She said she felt the same, but couldn't land on the right name. After that, we were down in a place that I think was connected to the kitchen and or the stables. Can't remember. Anyways, we had just gone up a couple of stairs and through a door when I heard a conversation between two people happening behind me. I thought it was another group, so I turned around to see how close they were, but nobody was there. My mom came up behind me and I asked her if she had heard the two people talking, but she said no. She did, however, sense two people. One was female, and the other was the man from the stairs. So I took a picture, and we left. This story will be completed in part 3. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the journey with me. I'm not sure how often I'll be posting something here, so leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and the bell, so you get updated when I do post. If you have questions or you want to know more about something I've said, please leave a comment and maybe I'll make a video explanation on the subject. But please be polite and courteous with the comments. My feelings don't get hurt, but the world has enough hate and judgment in it. It doesn't need yours on this video. If you think you know who I am, please don't leave a comment guessing my identity. Just send an email to the address in the description box. Thanks, and I'll see you when I see you.